So here we are getting set for the show today and thinking to myself, okay, the lead is very clear. Very, very clear. I have mentioned before that, I don't know when it was, probably 3 months ago, maybe not even that, 2 months ago, Eddie. We were all just sitting around shooting the bull about the Pacers, and our boss, Eddie Garrison, just broke his microphone. Our boss, Deion Livingston, is the one that pointed out, he said, you know, the guy that brings it every night for the Pacers is Obi Toppin. And we're like, yeah, that's probably true. Last night was, and I know that the Milwaukee game with Halliburton was electric because Reggie's in the building, and it was Reggie-esque, and it's Milwaukee. And that probably was, and you're breaking a 3-game skid. That might have been more symbolic. That might have been more electric. That was at home. But I think last night might have been the best Pacers win of the season. And Obi Toppin, once again, the thing that you love about Obi Toppin, not only does Obi Toppin clearly play well, clearly have an energy about him, but when they need him the most, and when there are games where everybody else is literally, last night's Pacers roster looked like the Indiana basketball coaching search. The first 4 guys that you think about were nowhere to be found. And then Obi Toppin is like, look, I'll just take over here. And he did. And the thing I love about Obi Toppin is the fact that no matter what they need from him night in and night out, you need somebody to come in and start a couple of fast breaks with an intercepted pass. Obi Toppin can do that for you. You need some key rebounds. Obi Toppin's there for you. You need a big shot in the corner. Obi Toppin's there for you. Or you need a guy to just simply take over and say, get on my back. Obi Toppin's there for you. At the beginning of the season, the Pacers had a game against a terrible Toronto team, and the Pacers were depleted, and Toronto beat them. But I remember saying at the time, boy, that would have been a great win because they were so down and out in terms of their roster, and they didn't win that game. And then, obviously, Toronto's terrible, and I thought, well, that was probably an overstate by me. Last night was tremendous. A red-hot Minnesota team. Everything was there for the Pacers to get blown off the floor. They had a double-digit lead. Minnesota comes roaring back. They've got a top 10 player in the game on their roster, and the Pacers are playing with a guy that nobody had heard of a month ago, and he's blocking shots, and he's getting rebounds. I mean, that was last night a sensational win. And I thought, surely, without question, that's the lead story today. That's the number one topic. And the Pacers just got Purdue'd. And what I mean by that, poor Purdue has been the preeminent college basketball program in the state of Indiana now for probably a decade, if not 2. And Purdue, once again, is the lone representative for the state of Indiana in the NCAA tournament. Purdue should be what we're talking about, which we're going to because Rob Blackman, their radio voice, is going to join us in 25 minutes. But here we are just before we go on. I mean, literally, in the last hour, boom. Jeff Goodman, who is a national writer, of course, for college basketball, and I think gets leaked stuff from Bloomington, sometimes perhaps as a leak test, offers the following. Now, Eddie, do we know? I'd like to know this. I think it's tomato. Do you pronounce this individual's last name as Vries or Vries?
Vries.
This from Jeff Goodman. West Virginia's Darian DeVries has emerged as one of, if not the top candidate for the Indiana job, sources told the Field of 68. I'm told by sources that nothing is done yet, but that DeVries could wind up being the guy. Drake's Ben McCollum and a third mystery candidate still in the mix as well, per source. Now, there are a lot of caveats that come with that. And here's the thing. I don't know Jeff Goodman. I certainly respect the career of Jeff Goodman. But it does kind of feel like this is the third or fourth name that he has sent out as, quote, the new leading candidate for the Indiana job. Am I wrong in that, Eddie? Am I too cynical there?
So he was the one that had the quote about Brad Stevens allegedly not being interested in the job. And then
he didn't say not interested. He said
sorry. Yeah,
not a candidate.
Not
right?
a candidate, whatever. Because we still don't know the context around what he asked Stevens. And then last week it was Ben McCollum.
Last week he is the one that said Ben McCollum is now the lead candidate, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is interesting because Iowa is the curveball in a lot of this. And allow me to explain. Like Ben McCollum, DeVries has strong roots to the state of Iowa. McCollum was born in Iowa City. DeVries coached at Northern Iowa and is a very accomplished coach. Has been in Division I at least longer than has Ben McCollum. Ben McCollum has a vast history in Division II in the state of Iowa. Now, I said last week, I'm sitting there on and I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday night, and Goodman had that report saying that Ben McCollum was now like a front runner at Indiana. And I recall at that time sending a message saying that I wonder if Iowa will accelerate their movement on Fran McCaffrey based on the fact that Ben McCollum now is getting interest. And there were a group of Iowa fans. I was downtown, and they were like, no, actually, DeVries is the guy that Iowa will go after. But the next day, Fran McCaffrey was relieved of his duties, and I wondered if that was because they were trying to position for one of those two guys, or if not both, if one isn't the other to go.
I think it's actually the other way. I just looked this up.
What's that?
DeVries.
Is it DeVries?
Yeah, DeVries.
That I think that is right. But either way, the West Virginia guy, as most people call it. But either way, Iowa is certainly in play as well. Now, anybody would assume that one would take the Indiana job over the Iowa job. But Iowa, there are pluses and minuses on both sides. Home is home for anybody. And if those guys are more familiar with Iowa, maybe that's more intriguing. Iowa doesn't have the resources of Indiana, and there's discussion that Iowa is even going to pull back more of their resource financially with their basketball program. However, here is one thing that is pertinent and important for the Indiana job. And by the way, Jake, it wasn't Goodman. It was Rick Bozich who said that about McCollum. Bozich said that McCollum and Brad Brownell both were candidates. But Goodman definitely had a report that McCollum was the front runner a week ago. This is the most important thing, and Indiana fans need to be aware of this. And this, I think, and who knows, Indiana may end up with Brad Stevens. Indiana may end up with Jay Wright. Indiana may end up with, insert name, right? But this is the most important criteria that Scott Dolson needs to look for in a coach. This is the most important thing. Ben McCollum doesn't have as much Division I experience, but has won at every level. He's John Beilein. Okay, great. Brad Brownell doesn't have a bunch of hardware, but he's from Indiana, and he understands how to do it at Indiana, and he wanted a place that doesn't have a lot of NIL. Great. DeVries doesn't have Final Four runs, but he's been at multiple programs where he's run it, and they've left as better than when he got there. Great. All of those are very important, don't get me wrong. The number one criteria, you mark my words right now. You can sit here right now and mark it at 12:10 p.m. on March the 18th of 2023. And this is, of all the things that I've said on this radio show, I don't know that any of them I believe more strongly than what I'm about to say. The number one criteria for the head coaching job at Indiana University is to get an individual who absolutely has a combination of the thick skin, the resume, but also the personal chutzpah about them to be absolutely impermeable to all of the outside noise that happens in Indiana. Bob Knight had it. Bob Knight walked into a room, and when Bob Knight walked into a room, I don't care who you are, everyone knew who was in charge of the room. John Calipari has it. When John Calipari walks in, there's an energy about John Calipari that you know he's in charge of the room, I guess unless it's a John Chaney press conference. Bill Self has it. Bill Self, when he walks in, you go, this guy's in control. This is an it. There's an it factor. Mick Cronin might have it. Archie Miller didn't have it. Archie Miller, when he got to Indiana, was just kind of there. Archie Miller's like Gerald Ford. He just kind of like bridged two things, and it was like, okay, you almost forget that it happened. Tom Crean, to an extent, had it, but then Tom Crean, I think, and I like Tom Crean, but at the later point, I think Tom Crean started paying too much attention to the nuances of the arrows that were flying around him. Mike Woodson, in the end, Mike Woodson, who was a great player at Indiana and a beloved figure in Indiana lore, but Mike Woodson got too consumed by what people thought about him. He got too consumed with what was being said about him. That job has a fan base that is more nuanced and feels more personally and emotionally invested in it than most jobs. And as a result of that, you have a fan base that feels they have an ownership stake in the program itself and thus has a right to be vociferous about every single nuance of the basketball program. And you absolutely need a 100% totally immune to noise alpha to come in that is going to be the coach at Indiana that says, this is my program, this is how I'm doing it, and I don't care what anybody else has to say about it. And there's a very short list of human beings that that compile the combination of the confidence and the credibility to be able to do that and have everybody step down. There just is. And I think that's part of why you're going to see Indiana from the standpoint of, unless they hit the major home run here, I think they're going to end up with a very good basketball coach. And they may end up with a home run hire. But if it's a home run hire, it's because it's somebody that goes in saying, I know that I can do this because I don't have to care what anybody says about it. And there's a short list of people that can say that. A lot of people can say it, doesn't mean they can do it. Brad Stevens could do it. Brad Stevens could walk in and Brad Stevens could say, I decided tomorrow we're going to change our school colors to blue and orange. And guess what? Indiana would look like Boise State the next day. Because he has the credibility where he can get away with it. Jay Wright could come in and say, we're doing things totally differently around here. We're not doing the flags at the 8-minute timeout anymore. And people would go, okay, it's Jay Wright. He's won back-to-back, he's won 2 titles at Villanova and has been on TV, and he has an it factor. I think Indiana, it is imperative that they find somebody with that it factor, and I think that job, there are a lot of coaches that are going to use Indiana, as I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. You never know how much, when there's smoke around a different coach, you never know how much of that is because of legitimate interest and how much of that is, here's a chance to get a raise. I'll flirt with some interest in Indiana if it means my school is going to all of a sudden pop me another $1.5 million a year. Let's go. And so you wonder how much of this is agent-driven in terms of the agent saying, look, I'm going to float your name out there, or I'm going to have people think that you have an interest in Indiana, and then we'll go from there and see what you can get out of it. So that's where things stand with that right now. Do I believe Jeff Goodman? Sure. As much as I believed him when he said it was McCollum and whatever else. I think there are like 5 people that know exactly what's going on with Indiana, and that's it. And then there's a lot of agent-driven noise for certain that's going on. But we'll keep an eye on it over the course of the day. We got numbers to give away as well today. We got a bunch of them, you said, Eddie, right?
Yep. Sorry, I was cutting a promo from your opening segment there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I said something promo-worthy?
Yeah, you did, surprisingly enough.
Can you edit out the ums and the stops when I'm saying that? I'm very tired today. I don't know. I've been tired lately. Fatigued.
You going through anything personal, Jake? You okay?
Yeah, the menopause. Listen, wait until next week. When I come back, I'm telling you right now, Monday's going to be a wing dinger of a show because I'm coming back on the red eye.
So wing dinger is that what you just used?
Uh-huh.
And what was the other one? Poomspa?
Hoomspa. Is that a word? I think it is, isn't it? It means big bulls, right? Can I say that on the radio? Is Hoomspa a word? I think it's Humpzah, maybe? Is that right? Eddie's always moving around. He just jumped up to realign a camera. But last night, the Pacers had exactly that. Whether that's a word or not, the Pacers had it. I want to go back to that because I thought that was – I think sometimes teams are defined – and the Pacers have been – when they have been healthy, they've been very good. And then – and this is, to me – this is why you like this team. Whether you're a fan of, if you live in Indiana, whether you're a fan of Notre Dame football or Purdue basketball or Indiana basketball or Indiana football or Butler basketball or the Colts, whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that those teams don't all have this. But if you're a fan of the Indiana Pacers, I think the thing you have to most love about this particular team, and it hasn't always been this way. Some years it is, some years it's not. There have been Pacer teams that were great collective team or, great players, but you didn't know for certain whether or not they totally got along and whether or not they had this bond about them. And one of the things that's fun about going to a Pacers game is, as I mentioned, you have all of these different teams in the state of Indiana. But then, some people like Notre Dame, some like Purdue, some like – but collectively, from the NBA standpoint, same as the NFL with the Colts, but we have one team in Indiana. It's the Indiana Pacers. And unless you live in Lafayette and for some reason you think you're from Chicago and you're a Bulls fan, which is weird. Get over it. It's been 25 years since Jordan played there. But nonetheless. So you have the Indiana – so everybody comes together to watch the Indiana Pacers. And – what you want is you want a team that feels that same level of feels like they have that same level of unity. And you don't always get it. But when you have a group and you see it, there was a great shot a couple of years ago with the Pacers when I can't remember what player it was that went down after like a missed layup, but instantly the other four on the floor all ran over to help him up. And it was a great photo that I think Matt Krieger got. And teams talk about unity. Teams talk about gelling together. Everybody says character. Everybody's got character, right? Every single team known to man, you talk to their fan base, like, well, I just love the character. They're just good guys. Everybody says that. But saying it and exhibiting it and actually showing it are two totally different things. That was redundant, I realize. Last night, the Pacers showed character. They showed unity. They showed depth because when things were down and out and you had Miles Turner out, Pascal Siakam out, Aaron Nesmith out, Tyrese Halliburton out, Andrew Nembhard, who Rudy Gobert, I guess Rudy Gobert decides to do something in March of every year that people wonder what the heck's going on. The Rudy Gobert, and Nembhard, I get that Nembhard was ejected because he got a second technical for throwing the ball at Rudy Gobert. But Rudy Gobert, what was he doing?
I think he was standing up for Mike Conley. So I don't know if you saw this right before that. Nembhard kind of elbows Conley in the face as he's driving to the basket. Probably inadvertent, but he gets up into the face of Mike Conley, and, Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert go back to their days in Utah, so I think there might have been an aspect of Rudy Gobert sticking up for Mike Conley there.
Fair, I get, maybe.
But it also is Rudy Gobert. He is a slightly, dirty player.
I mean, I kind of like him, to be honest with you, but he's a good player. But this particular group, though, Nembhard throws the basketball and gets tossed, right? You'd like to have him there, but the rest of them, it would have been totally understandable if they dropped that game last night. not going to say excusable, but understandable. And it would have been, people would have said, yeah, I get it, if they would have gone out and once that lead went away, end up losing by 15 and Anthony Edwards goes off for 35 and whatever else. But for that group, every single one of them, Mathurin played well and was like, give me the basketball until he fouled out, right? But everybody else just did what they needed to do, but like without any, there was nobody who was seeking the stardom of it, of like, hey, this is my chance. I'm going to go out and get mine. Obi Toppin did that because that's what they needed. And so he was the designated scorer, if you will, especially once Mathurin goes down. But I don't think it was because Toppin was desiring that. That's what was working for them, right? I'm telling you, if you, and I'm not sitting here trying to carry water for it, and yes, if they may turn around now and who knows? They turn around against, and the Mavs, when Dallas comes in here tomorrow night, Dallas is going to be the version of what you saw last night for Indiana. I mean, Dallas is playing literally. They got 3 people that are actually volunteers at the Texas School Book Depository that are coming over, right?
Yeah. They're like on the verge of having to forfeit games because they don't have enough players.
Totally. And yet Dallas is kind of still hanging around in the thick of things. But how about last night with, I mean, we're going to talk a lot about Toppin, right? But Thomas Bryant had some big plays. But how about Tony Bradley? How about Tony Bradley?
He was big for them in that first half.
Okay, how about this being big? And I love it. How about during the Nembhard and Rudy Gobert skirmish? So Nembhard, I think it was at that moment that Nembhard gets ejected, but there are 2 free throws coming, and Minnesota gets to select who from the other team they want shooting the free throws.
Mm-hmm.
So they look at it and they're like, okay, who's going to be the most nervous and who's the guy that like they have the least chance of him coming in and hitting free throws. All right, we're going to pick Enrique Freeman. So he comes in, buries 2 free throws. Guess what? There's your game difference right there.
Yep. What Rick Carlisle said in the locker room. Said they won by 2 points, and they don't win by those 2 points if Enrique Freeman doesn't hit those free throws.
And he comes in cool as a cucumber, hits both of them. I'm telling you, I thought it was awesome. Everything about it was awesome. Tony Bradley, 12 points, 9 boards in 20 minutes. TJ McConnell, 13 assists. Ben Shepherd does Ben Shepherd things, right? Just like doesn't necessarily jump out in the box score, but is kind of always in the right position to interrupt a pass angle, things like that. Benedict Mathurin goes for 22. You know, obviously he fouls out, right? Hell, Jarris Walker played well. I mean, I thought it was great. Great performance. Major League Baseball started, right?
Yes. Pride, I think, was the word that Rick Carlisle used this morning on the morning show. Yes, Major League Baseball started at 6 a.m. Dodgers and Cubs. Dodgers winning 4-1. First of 162 wins for L.A.
So where was this game played?
I think it was Tokyo.
And does that count if it was in Tokyo?
Yeah, this is the regular season for them.
But the regular season starts for everybody else in like a month, right? They just go over there, play in Japan. Days. Nobody knows about it except for like 12 Cubs fans that are flying the L flag in front of their house, and then Major League Baseball starts in 2 weeks.
Yeah, try 9 days.
Rob Blackman will be on the call for the Purdue Basketball Radio Network as the Boilers are all of a sudden everybody's up on High Point, man. Everybody's picking High Point. What is it about High Point that everybody likes, and what is it about Purdue that everybody dislikes? What are the Boilers seeing about all of it? Rob Blackman joins us to discuss that next here. Query and Company on a Tuesday on The Fan. NCAA tournament getting underway. The play-in games, of course, in Dayton. For Purdue, it is High Point that is the opponent, and High Point is apparently high-flying. Big offensive team. I don't know necessarily defensively that they are one that jumps off the page at you, but I'm very curious to see what kind of the breakdown is. Rob Blackman is, of course, the radio play-by-play voice of the Purdue Boilermakers, joins us now on the always busy and available to be sponsored by your company guest line. Rob, what do we know about High Point to this point other than there are a lot of people that are picking them as a trendy Cinderella pick?
And I don't think I blame them, Jake. When you look at their roster, a lot of high major transfers, mostly seniors or grad students, and they score 82 points a game, and they have a whole lot of guys who, as I mentioned, come from bigger schools that they're playing with the old proverbial chip on their shoulder like they have something to prove. So, yeah, it makes sense to me that this is a trendy pick as an upset. Unfortunately for Purdue fans, they won't want to hear this, but it does a little bit remind me of 4 or 5 years ago, North Texas, when they upset Purdue in the first round of the tournament. That was a very similar roster comprised of a bunch of transfers who were high major guys who transferred down to the mid-major level, but most importantly were seniors or fifth-year players, guys that had a ton of experience. So they I can see why they're a trendy pick. Obviously, I'm rooting for the team I work for, but I'm not surprised that a lot of folks have jumped on the High Point bandwagon.
You know, we saw last night, Rob, from the NBA standpoint, and I bring this up for a reason. You know, the Pacers last night were down a ton of people, and yet Obi Toppin comes in and kind of, Matherin had a really good game for them, but Toppin, when they really needed it, comes through and delivers offensively and gets hot and becomes kind of their go-to guy. My concern, and I want you to talk me off this ledge, but I've been saying this for a while now. My concern for Purdue, obviously Braden Smith and, Trey Kaufman-Wren are two extremely special players, and there's no reason to believe that those two guys would disappear in a game. But if they simultaneously have an off night, I worry about where the slack is picked up for Purdue offensively, and that makes it easy for teams to scout them and hone in on what Purdue wants to do. Now, talk me off that ledge.
No, I would agree. Those have been the two guys. With Fletcher Lawyer, I would throw him in there as well. Fletcher's averaging 14 points a game, led the Big Ten in three-point shooting percentage at 47%, but he's the guy often not talked about because his two running mates, and Braden and Trey that you're talking about, they're just so dang good that really kind of Fletcher becomes a forgotten guy. But the point you're making is, yes, if the two stars in TKR and Braden are struggling offensively, where does Purdue find offense? And that would be, look, there have been different times throughout the season where there has been a guy step up. I'd go all the way back to early November when C.J. Cox, who not only was just a freshman at the time, he is still just a freshman, but was just getting his feet wet in college basketball. He scored 11 points in a row against the team that was ranked second in the country at the time. CJ's had a 23-point game earlier this year against Nebraska. So there have been times when others have stepped up. Miles Colvin's another guy, had 20 points in that win against Ole Miss in the tournament we played out in San Diego. Point being, there have been guys this year that have stepped up when Purdue needed offense from someone not named Trey Kaufman-Wren or Braden Smith. The problem, of course, has been you just haven't consistently had that person. There have been nights when, well, quite frankly, even against Michigan last Friday night, where there really was no one else that could really offer up much offense, and Purdue struggled, scoring only 68 points. So the beauty of the tournament, right, you don't need those guys to be consistent for more than just 40 minutes, quite frankly. Just give us a third scorer, a fourth scorer, for one game and help us advance to the next game, and then we'll try to figure it out for the next one. But yeah, I certainly get your point, and I don't think I did a very good job of talking you off the ledge there. But if Purdue can find that guy consistently, and look, if we're looking for storylines, let's go with C.J. Cox. I mean, he's the one guy on Purdue's roster that is actually from the Northeast. He grew up in Lexington, Massachusetts, which is an hour away from Providence. So he's going to have a ton of family and friends there. something he rarely has for games here in the Midwest, obviously. So if you want, if you're looking for a feel-good storyline, go with C.J. Cox to have a big game for Purdue in front of a bunch of family and friends. At least in the storybook ending, obviously that is how this weekend would go for Purdue.
By the way, have you ever been to Providence, Rob? I can't remember if Purdue's played through there at some point.
Have Purdue? Well, Purdue has been. I have not been with them. I have been one time, yes, for a long weekend, but not with Purdue. So no.
Okay, Providence is cool. I mean, for what it's worth, right? What's that?
And we absolutely, and we practice tomorrow at Brown University.
Oh yeah,
which I'm really looking for. Yeah, I want to see their campus and get because I've never seen Brown. So even though I've been in Providence, but
here's the thing.
So Cool city, yeah.
Brown's an Ivy League school, and you went to Evansville, which is essentially Ivy League of Indiana, right? I mean, isn't that right? Right.
I wasn't. Look, trust me, I was not. Well, let's see. How can I put this? I wasn't dumb enough to send my transcripts to Brown, thinking I might get it in there.
I think
I knew what the answer was going to be.
I've always believed this: if you ask people to name the Ivy League, I think Brown is the last one that most people would come up with, right?
Maybe, but still way above my head.
Like if you ask people to mention the Ivy League of Indiana, Evansville's the first that people think of, right?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Story.
Yeah.
Sure.
My sister went to Evansville, and she's the smartest of the three of us in terms of my siblings. So I mean, there, right? I mean, it's kind of like being the tallest member of the Lollipop Guild, but still, I mean, it counts for something.
Yeah.
Hey,
absolutely.
Do you think? I'm curious of this, Rob. Rob Blackman is our guest. He's the radio voice of Purdue basketball. You've obviously seen Purdue go deep into tournament runs, and I ask this a lot about teams. Do you think Matt Painter at this point in the year, are there ways or styles or sets that Purdue can do that they bring out for the tournament that allows them to be, to deviate a little bit from who they are? Or has Purdue gotten to this point of being a top 4 seed for 8 straight years and going to the national title game? Is that more about this is who we are, these are the chips we're putting out there, and we believe in them, and we're not going to deviate from that?
Yeah, I think the back end of your comment is more accurate, and I would add this to that. Here is what I have seen, both good and bad, with Purdue basketball when it comes to the tournament. And that's not only what I've seen, but what I hear from the other coaches, the other media members, the other players, when you get them in a post-game press conference after they played Purdue. They almost always, to a man, say, Purdue runs so much stuff offensively and so much good stuff offensively, you can't prepare for it all. Now, when you get into Big Ten play, they can prepare for it all, especially the guys like the Tom Izzos of the world that have seen Purdue now for 20 straight years and Matt Painter for 20 straight years. There's a reason why those Big Ten teams have a lot more success guarding Purdue than others once we get into this tournament, where you have the short turnaround to try to get ready. I've heard it. If I've heard it once, Jake, I've heard it 1,000 times. And even teams that beat Purdue, these aren't necessarily the teams that lose, but even teams that beat Purdue, one of the first things they talk about is, man, Purdue runs so much good stuff on offense. You can't prepare for it all. You just do the best you can and let the chips fall where they may. So to answer the question directly, will Purdue deviate? No, they will not. The pressure will be on the other team to see if they can come up with enough ingenious ways defensively to slow Purdue down. The problem, of course, this year, unfortunately for this year's Purdue team, and those that have followed closely know this, it hasn't been Purdue offensively. It's been Purdue's struggle on the defensive end. That has been the bigger concern. And at this point in the season, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, this is not the team that Purdue thought they were going to have. Purdue thought it was going to have a 7'4" rim protector in Daniel Jacobson. Obviously, he breaks his leg in the second game of the year. So Purdue, quite frankly, has been swimming upstream ever since on the defensive end because of that. So there's going to be no deviation or try to, Purdue's not going to all of a sudden start running zone defense all of a sudden after not having played zone all season. Purdue's going to stick with what it does defensively and hope for the best. But again, the real trick for Purdue is offensively. Normally, there's just so much you have to prepare for. Purdue has a lot more success in these tournaments traditionally against teams that aren't seeing them week in and week out like teams out of the Big Ten do.
Okay, Eddie, pot your mic up here. Between the two of you, Rob, I'll let you go first. Can you guys name the Ivy League? Go ahead, Rob Blackman. How many can you name? Ivy League, go.
Oh,
Brown's one. You know that, right? What's that?
Yeah, Brown, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, How many are there total, by the way?
8.
Eight. Okay, so
Princeton.
I have 4.
Okay.
Penn, Princeton. Now we're to 6.
You're missing
Let's
2.
see. Yep. Columbia.
Bingo. All right, you got one left. You know it, Eddie?
And,
It's in New Hampshire. The one you're missing is in New Hampshire, and I believe green and white.
Dartmouth.
Correct. Yes. Now, the other question would be this.
He didn't even need my help.
What's the most common school that people think is Ivy League, but it's not? The one that, I think Colgate. I think people get Colgate and Cornell confused.
Yeah.
And Evansville. Evansville's the other one. A lot of people think Evansville.
Okay, if we can't use Evansville. Now, first of all, is this your opinion, or you have hard facts that this is the one that always gets confused?
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, Rob, but we've been around each other a little bit. You probably know this now. Basically, my opinion are hard facts, right? My opinions.
Okay.
You should know
enough.
this by now, right?
Boy, the one that would get confused the most.
NYU? Do you think people think NYU?
Well, that's what I just said. Yeah, NYU, but I don't know that. Again, it's your fact, so we'll go with you. I would say NYU, probably.
We both said NYU at the same time, so it must be that. Speaking of times, it will be 12:30 on Thursday. Purdue and High Point in Providence, Rhode Island. Rob Blackman will be on the call. Rob, I appreciate it, man. Safe travels, all right?
All right, Jake. Thanks. Thanks, Eddie.
There is something funny that could happen, by the way, after the Purdue game. Very funny and interesting that may happen as it relates to college basketball in the state. We'll get to that, and we have numbers to give away. Stephen Holder going to join us 1 o'clock, but phones are open now, 239-1070. That's better known as 239-1070. We'll do the numbers game next. All right, you know how we do it. Now, let me give the numbers real quick that are taken up. So if you are on hold right now, please, we ask, pay attention. The following numbers have already been taken, so do not ask for these numbers. 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 17, 19, 20, 23, 24, 29, 44, and 45. All other numbers are totally fair game. Cluster Truck is who we are thrilled to have as our sponsor for this. 3 teams that will win for you in the NCAA tournament. We're going to give you a team. You give me a number, I will give you the team assigned to that number. If you get the national champion, you get the double-digit seed to advance the furthest, or you get the team blown out by the largest margin. Yes, there are tiebreakers for those other 2 categories. You are going to receive, respectively, a week's worth of Cluster Truck food, which is fabulous, by the way. Cluster Truck delivering, and they have, and I've seen their menu. I mean, they have, like, you think there's a lot of numbers here. There's 80 different items you can choose from Cluster Truck. In addition to that, $50 gift certificate for second prize, $25 gift card for third place, and you will get a hat of the school that won you that fabulous prize. We will go starting from the bottom, move up. So we'll start with Jack. Jack, what's up?
How you doing?
I am well, thank you. What number would you like, sir?
37.
37. Is there a significance to the number 37 in your life?
No, because 7 was taken, so I went 37.
All right, here we go, Jack. This is one of them that I think could make some noise. Go ahead, Eddie. Hit us up. Well, that's interesting. Simon and Garfunkel, little Mrs. Robinson. Do you know what Mrs. Robinson was in terms of the American culture, Jack?
Yes, I do. Would it be? I'm gonna guess St. John's.
That's a good guess. No, because I think that there was some New York tie-in. No, she is a Cougar, and so too is BYU. The Cougars are off the board, and believe me, BYU can play at a furious pace and score from about anywhere. Greg is up next. Greg, what's up?
What's going on, Jake?
You're looking at it, Greg. You out doing some landscaping today?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Heading up to the wonderful area of Westfield again.
All right. What number would you like?
22.
Number 22 for Greg. Ooh. Hit us, Eddie.
This is Sparta!
The Spartans of Michigan State. Greg might have noticed a large Michigan State contingency at our party on Saturday night. Spartans are off the board. Ben is up next. Ben, what up?
How you doing, sir?
You know I'm well. How about you? You sound like a nice guy, Ben. Are you in a good mood today?
I am. Any day I get to start to use a good day.
Well, hell, that's very nice of you. Have you called the show before?
I have not.
Okay, you know this is Quarian Company, right?
KB's not on anymore?
That's before I get up in the morning. Okay, Ben, what number would you like?
25, please.
25. Ooh. Ben, how big a basketball fan are you?
In passing, but I always like my odds. So.
I'll tell you what, you got a school in Gonzaga that is one who is always in the mix, but they are now an 8 seed. I believe they opened with UConn, if I'm not mistaken. Bill up next. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Good. What number would you like, Bill?
How about 18?
18? Any significance to the number 18 in your life, Bill?
Old Peyton Manning.
Fair enough. Who's your college team of choice, Bill?
Indiana State Sycamores.
Oh, that's cool. You got actually a team that comes out of the same league, as a matter of fact. If you watch Seinfeld, you know everybody loves the Drake, and so too do you now because the Bulldogs go to you. Matthew up next. Matthew, how are you?
Hey, Jake. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. What number would you like?
31.
31, going with Reggie Miller, baby. Reggie Miller and 31. Eddie, go ahead. What the hell was that, Eddie? May I ask? What?
There it goes again. There's Farmer Fred from the Waterboy.
And that relates to number 31 how?
I can't remember why we used it last year. If I'm being honest, I just used it.
Texas A&M, the Aggies. I guess because that's an Aggie. Is that an agriculturalist? Is that what that is?
Sure.
The Aggies of Texas A&M. Let's go one more here. We'll just go roulette style on line 2. All right, you are on the air. Please no swearing. What is your first name?
Duke.
Duke. Well, my gosh. Now, if you get Duke, I'm going to tell you right now, we're just going to shut this whole thing down.
Duke's gone.
Duke is gone? Okay. Is that really your name, Duke, or are you just a big dude?
It's a nickname I got in college.
Is it because you're a big guy, or are you of royalty?
It's neither. It was just a name that was given to me one day, and I took it. And
it's not short for Dookie, is it? Because if so, we might have to reassess your friends.
No, it's not.
Okay. Where did you go to school in college?
The other Ivy League school in Indiana, Ball State.
Okay. Well, we'll speak slowly. Okay. What number would you like here from 1 through 64? 1 through 68, 10. What's that?
15.
15. Is there a significance to the number? By the way, just so you know, Duke, I made that joke to you, and I apologize. I was waitlisted at Ball State, so you're already intellectually a step ahead of me, just so you know.
All right.
Number 15. Are you a Pacer fan by chance, Duke?
I am.
Do you know the name of the Pacers' backup center, who's a very high-energy guy that played at Indiana? They traded for him midway through the year?
Thomas Bryant.
That's correct. Bryant off the board. You got Bryant, who is one of the 15 seeds. Keep in mind, largest blowout. Eddie, they just brought in some cluster truck. What'd you order? I got the tacos. What'd you get?
I ordered a crispy chicken Caesar wrap. I thought everyone was going to hang out and we chat with him, but he must have better things to do than talk with us in 2 straight days.
That's the thing about cluster truck. When they're delivering to you, they get the food to you. It's hot, it's piping fresh, and then bada boom, they got to get to somebody else because they got customers all over the place. They're an Indianapolis institution, right? So too is Stephen Holder, and he's going to join us next. Tell you what, cluster truck dropping that food off is clutch. Tacos are outstanding. Eddie, you got Eddie's eating. The chicken Caesar wrap, is that correct?
Crispy chicken Caesar wrap and some tater tots. I haven't tried the wrap yet. Tater tots are really good. Good. You want one?
Yeah, throw a tot over here, would you? Look at that. Joining us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so during lunch on the always busy and available to be sponsored guest line, is Stephen Holder from ESPN.com. We are amidst now NFL free agency, but I'm going to begin with this. Stephen, your Final Four is who?
Oh man, I have no idea. I know this is a terrible answer. In Indiana, I have watched less college basketball this year than ever, and I feel like a moron right now because I am completely clueless when this topic comes up. And I know this is terrible sports radio, but I'm just being honest, man. I can't say.
This is what's interesting about this year's tournament. Okay.
Okay.
Let's just say hypothetically that I'm asking you that same question, but I'm asking you to name the 4 teams that you believe will make it into the college football playoff on an annual basis. So we're going to take Notre Dame out of the equation. Who are the schools that you would say?
That are regular candidates for the football playoff?
Correct. Other than Ohio, I'll take Ohio State and Notre Dame out of it.
So it's under like the 4-team playoff, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I would say, well, Alabama, obviously.
Okay, very plausible for the Final Four. Okay.
Sure. I guess you'd have to say, well, right now, Texas would be in the conversation.
Okay, plausible Final Four team. All right, keep going.
Yeah. Georgia, clearly.
Okay.
And then one more. I would say, depending on the year, Ohio State, obviously. Yeah.
Well, if Ohio State's not in this tournament, how about Auburn? Is Auburn plausible? Oregon plausible?
Well, some years, yeah.
So I'm going to put you down for your Final Four in this year's tournament. You said Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to go with Auburn. I'm going to give you a lofty one there with Auburn.
All right.
How about Florida? Florida, I know you're a Miami guy, but Florida's a decent football program, right? All right, you'll go with Florida.
They've played some football over the years, I hear. Yeah.
And how about and you said Georgia? Georgia would be a bit of a Cinderella. They come out of the same region as Tennessee. Tennessee also plausible, right?
Right.
Okay,
right,
there's your Final Four. It is a remarkable year because all of the power basketball teams not named Duke seemingly are all football schools, which is what's weird.
I have caught wind of some of that. That is true. Like, it is interesting, and I've been through that lately with Miami. They don't. They're not a factor this year, clearly, but they have been in the last few years. And we've had this conversation on the show before. How do those football schools, how do their basketball fans or their fans generally process the basketball success? Like, do they care on a level equal to the football success or not, and so forth? And I'd be very interested to hear how fans of those other football schools feel, because I know how my Miami people feel, or how they felt, and the way they felt was like, oh, this is fun. It's like,
win spring practice,
what's up
right?
with the football team?
Yeah, I get it. Now, part of the reason why you have not paid as much attention to the NCAA tournament is obviously because we are amidst NFL free agency. I'm going to ask you a question that I've asked the last couple of days to myself, and that is, what players or player that the Colts have yet to move on, and I'm talking about in-house. So I'm talking about players for the Colts that are free agents right now that have not yet been, their name has not surfaced either elsewhere or with Indianapolis, that has maybe surprised you. Are there any that come to mind?
I would say EJ Speed a little bit. Unless I've missed something in the past day or so, I've not really seen him connected to much conversation. And now I don't think he was necessarily as attractive a free agent as his statistics might suggest. He's one of the leading tacklers in the NFL and all that. I didn't necessarily assume that meant he was an elite player. Don't get me wrong, but I thought maybe he was a viable answer for somebody and that he might, be in somebody's conversation. I've not heard him. I've not heard anything about him, and I actually am starting to wonder. This is not a report. This is not a suggestion. It's nothing. It's just me thinking. I'm starting to wonder if there is a possibility they just bring him back because he's going to be cheap. To be completely honest, and I don't know if that's a direction they want to go. Do they want to upgrade? Are they looking to upgrade? I don't know, but they have to, I think, make a move at linebacker of some kind. They being the Colts, and I think it's at least within the realm of possibility now. Much like we saw with Julian Blackmon last year, he wanted a better deal. He went out there and sought it. It was not available. He came back and he took the 1-year deal with the Colts. So anyway, just food for thought.
Stephen, here's a term that I have used ad nauseum on this program, and you and I were at a Pacer game when I brought it up to you, and it's one of the few times where I could see that I said something that you actually found insightful.
I wouldn't say that.
But no, I'm being facetious. But you know this, and for those that listen to this show, they're familiar with my term in the NBA, a 20-25 guy, a guy that is destined to score 20 a game on a 25-win team his whole career because he's a scorer and guys have to score even on bad teams. Is there any chance that from a linebacking standpoint that E.J. Speed is the NFL equivalent defensively of a 20-25 guy?
That's a great question. I was watching the Bucks the other day, maybe against the Pacers, and Kyle Kuzma was that guy. Right?
Yeah, his whole career he has been, right?
In fact, we were probably watching the Wizards.
I think
when
we
he was
were
on the team when you made that statement.
I think that's right. I think he is the poster child of the 20-25 guy. Yes,
he really is, and I'm actually not kidding. I think it really was him that created that conversation. Anyhow, that's actually not terrible. I do think that you have E.J. Speed playing in a defense where you are going to accumulate a lot of tackles as a linebacker in the scheme they were playing. There's some truth to that. There really is. There really is some truth to that. There's also I think in a related conversation, to the NBA scenario you laid out there, right? There's buckets and then there's like meaningful buckets, right? And a lot of there are plays that matter and plays that are just routine plays. So there are guys that make more of one versus the other. And I guess what I mean by that is, okay, you can make a lot of tackles. Are they impactful plays? Are you getting tackles at or near the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage? Are you making plays in space, where a guy would have otherwise gotten a big gain, right? And so there's lots of little idiosyncrasies, if that's the word, when it comes to the plays that you make, and I think they're not all judged equally. So that is fair.
Stephen Holder's our guest from ESPN.com. The approach that Chris Ballard has taken to this free agency, seemingly, and I actually like it. I like what he's done because it feels like he said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to address two areas that he's been big on. One is line depth. I think on the offensive side they covered that. The other is the defensive backfield. There is still a gaping need at the tight end position. Does that mean that we're now going to see them draft one, if not two, tight ends?
Oh, I fully expect that that's going to be a focus of the draft. And a lot of times what you should do and what makes sense is in free agency, you hit the areas that you aren't sure you can address in the draft. And I think they did that here. They know that tight end is a strength of the draft. It doesn't mean you should save all of your moves at that position for the draft, but certainly you can make a big splash there in the draft if you so choose. They had a very pressing need at cornerback or defensive back generally, and there were some good options in free agency. They pounced on that. They took what was available to them. I think it makes sense. They have done, or they have conducted themselves in a very sensible way through free agency. And I know that's like a backhanded compliment maybe, but I'm just telling you, sometimes they've overcomplicated it and maybe done things or not done things that you thought were obvious. And you're left to wonder, like, well, why wouldn't you just do that, right? And this time they did. They did what made sense. They needed secondary impact players in the secondary. Boom. They took care of that. What else did they do? Oh, they needed depth on the defensive line. Boom, they did that. Backup running back. There was a huge drop-off behind Jonathan Taylor. What did they do? They addressed that. They're probably not done, but they at least made a move there. So this is what free agency is for, man. Go out there, look at your roster, and say, all right, we got to fix some things. Let's address the areas that we haven't in the draft and free agency in the past. And they did that. It's amazing how that works.
Which of the free agent signings that they have brought in most impressed Stephen Holder?
Well, I like Charvarius Ward probably the most, just because I think he's been the most impactful player of the guys they signed in the past. And he had a little bit of a down year last year, and we all know what happened to him last year. He had a horrible tragedy. His daughter passed. He has made it very clear that he was not in the right frame of mind to perform last year. So I think if we can ever give a guy a pass, this is the time, right? If you go back before last season, this guy was one of the elite corners in the NFL. And we've not been able to say that in Indianapolis for a long time, outside of Kenny Moore, who is a very unique player with a very specific type of job as a slot corner. I'm talking about the guys who go out there and shut down your number one wide receivers in the league. They haven't had that guy since the late Vontae Davis. They just haven't. And I will tell you, a lot of those defenses that Vontae played on, they were able to do the things they did in part because he was erasing somebody's best receiver. There were like 2 or 3 years where he was just absolutely elite. He was very up and down when it came to injuries, and he always had something kind of slowing him. He's one of those, high performance cars. There's always something wrong with it. Something you got to tweak here and there. So he had a lot of maintenance issues with groins, hamstrings, etc. But let me tell you, when he was at his best, he could take away the other team's top receiver. And what that does for a defense, I can't even tell you what it does. It changes the impact of your pass rush completely. It makes your linebackers better. Everybody suddenly gets better. So I love that pick, and I love that, or that signing, I should say, and I love that they are, it appears, going to let him loose and say, hey, you go get that guy. And that's what he does, right? You go get that number one receiver, you follow him, and then we'll see you later.
Did Jim Irsay seemingly send a message via social media to Chris Ballard of, okay, we've had 14 losing seasons in 42 years, not good enough. The time is now to hit the accelerator, and we're not going to sit around and wait much longer. In other words, was he more in absentia a year ago, Jim Irsay, than theoretically he is prepared to be now?
Well, he was certainly not last year at this time. He was certainly not where he is now. That I would say, because he was coming off a very recent medical situation. Now if the next time we see him, it's not as if he's going to be, from everything I know, it's not as if he's going to be have the physical appearance of someone who is in tip-top health. Okay, that is not the case. He's still physically recovering in a lot of ways. Just is what it is. However, he's definitely in a much better place. A lot of time has passed between whatever he was dealing with at this time last year versus now. I would say up until about early February of 2024, we had no idea what kind of shape Jim Irsay was in. We weren't sure. We weren't sure what his status was at all.
Correct.
Okay.
Understood.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know
Understood.
what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, we're not there now. Okay. Now the question is like, oh, is he going to show up to the owners' meetings next week, which might happen, for example? That would be a huge step in the right direction. Hell, what if we got to talk to him, right? I mean, that would be amazing, right? So I mean, we're not where we were with Jim Irsay last year. So that is good. How much that has impacted how they've conducted themselves, harder to say, but it certainly has had to have had some impact, because he just couldn't possibly have had the same level of involvement last year as he did this year. So those are facts.
Any other, in terms of the free agency game, or veteran players that are open to be traded. Anybody that you still are keeping an eye on, or are we now into kind of quieted waters until the draft?
Well, the trade reference, I assume you're talking about Trey Hendrickson there with the Bengals edge rusher. I mean, on that front, I would say here's what we can say. Do they like him as a player? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have his former defensive coordinator is in the building. So is there interest? Yes, that is a fair statement. That is a very different thing than saying they can make it happen. I don't know if that will happen or if it's even a possibility. But as I mentioned, I think last week on this show, I think every day that he remains with the Bengals, the price goes down. Teams have spent a lot of money in the last couple of weeks. So the teams that now can accommodate a new contract for him, it's a shorter list right now. The Colts really aren't necessarily one of those teams, but they can make room and could get it done. In theory, there is a way to get there if they so choose. But they would have to restructure some things, maybe even make some roster moves and cut some players. But they could do it, even though it would be difficult. But that first-round pick that was requested by the Bengals is a non-starter. That no one's doing that, which is why I would say the price is going down just based on the reaction from teams where no one budged when they said first-round pick. So if it drops low enough, you re-engage and then you see if there's something there. But I don't know that we are there yet. So I would say business as usual until it's not. I'm interested to see if they make a tight end move. Is there a linebacker move to make? And even perhaps an offensive line depth signing. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, you can. This is another one of my lines. You can use it, Stephen, if you'd like. I'm giving you permission. Cornerbacks or defensive backs in general and offensive linemen. You know what I always say, Stephen? You know what two things those are? Defensive backs and offensive linemen. What are the household items that I always say they are?
I should know this. I feel like I should know this, but I'm not. It's not registering right now.
Phone chargers and sunglasses. You can never have too many because just when you think you do, you either lose one or break one every time.
100%. 100%. I leave a pair of sunglasses in like every room in the car. I mean, every room in the house. You know what I mean? And chargers, I have I buy them by like the pack of 3 every other week at Amazon. So
of course,
I'm keeping Jeff Bezos in business.
All right. By the way, I just found out Friday we're going to be at Prime 47 for an NCAA tournament viewing party, Stephen. Stop by, food, drinks, and conversation and games as well for the NCAA tournament that you were unaware is going on.
That sounds awful. Why would I want to do that? Yeah,
of course, right?
I think I'm there, man.
All right. Well, we'll be there. I will. I'll reach out, but I appreciate the information as always. We'll keep an eye on what goes on NFL-wise.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Stephen Holder joining us from ESPN.com. I think I've told you this before, Eddie. You know that there are 3 things that I have a problem with in terms of an abundance, and I can never turn them down. If there's a deal or I'm always intrigued, I always have my eye on what the next one is. Do you know what? 2 of those 3, I think you know what they are. You know what they are, right? That I collect?
Well, you can't collect my one-liners, so.
And
watches.
I can get enough of those. Watches is 1, yes.
Cologne.
Cologne is number 2.
Zippo lighters.
No, that's a great call because I used to sell Zippo lighters. Now, let me give you a little factoid about Zippo lighters for those that are unfamiliar. If you look at a Zippo lighter on the bottom, there's a Roman numeral and a letter of the alphabet. And people often wonder what that is. Now, give me a letter A through J, Eddie, off the top of your head.
E.
The letter E, okay? And then give me a Roman numeral, if you could.
X.
X. So, if there is an E on one side of the bottom of your Zippo lighter and an X on the other side, X is the Roman numeral for 10. E is A, B, C, D, E. That's the 5th letter of the alphabet, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means that your Zippo lighter was made in the month of May, and the 10 is the Roman numerals after the year that they began doing this, which I believe was 1993. So if you have an EX Zippo lighter, that means that your Zippo lighter was actually produced in May of 2003.
Nice.
See how
who won the race that year?
Which year?
That would have been May of 2003.
That would be none other than Gilles de Ferran that won the race in 2003, based on a late pass of his teammate Elio Castroneves when Castroneves had to check up due to a slowing car of AJ Foyt IV.
Mm-hmm. Was that in the middle of the 2 and 3 years for him? Or was that the year before his first?
Castro Neves won in 01 and 02 and was going for his third straight in 03. And DeFerrin beat him. But and I have a Jeff Hester, my buddy, got me a fabulous Zippo lighter from Pearl Harbor, which I still have it, and I've misplaced it. That's like the one thing that I would love to find during the Great Purge. I did not come across where that is, but I know I have it somewhere. But the other thing that I have too many of is sunglasses. Spy is a great sunglass company. They used to sponsor J.R. Hildebrand, and that's how I first discovered them. Spy, Ray-Ban, I've got an issue. I probably have 20 pair of, like, nice sunglasses. It's kind of a problem, to be honest with you.
And you have how many bottles of cologne?
Well, I've downsized a lot. I gave away a lot. I think at one point I was probably at somewhere around 45 or 50.
Now let me ask you this, since you have so many. If you go on like a vacation, do you take multiple bottles with you or do you take one?
Excellent question. I have 2. They look like lipstick canisters. Because you can't take cologne. Nothing over 3 ounces can go on a plane.
Yep.
So I have 2 little like lipstick canisters that you can spray cologne into, and then it's a traveling cologne thing. I carry 2. I have 2 that I wear when I'm on the road. One is a Bond number 9, and the other is a Lacoste.
It's always those?
I wear. Yes. Well, because it's once you spray it into the bottle, you got to. I mean, it's like a year's supply that goes in there. So currently, those are the 2 that I have on the road.
Oh, okay.
And then it just depends on what mood I'm in after I bathe on the road, which one did I shower with. We have more numbers to give away. Is that right?
That's right.
We will do that, and then we got to talk about what happened last night in the Twin Cities. Rick Carlisle talked about it this morning. We'll let you hear what he had to say about what might be the finest Pacer performance of the year. We'll let you hear from him next. All right, numbers to give away. If you are on the line, be patient. We will get to you here. I want to get back into what happened last night in Minnesota. The Pacers were shorthanded. You know that by now. They had a double-digit lead. And then coming out of the second half, it looked like Anthony Edwards and Minnesota were going to kind of take control. They cut it quickly down to 6. And you thought, well, it was fun while it lasted. This was a great story without Miles Turner, without, Andrew Nembhard, who had been ejected because of a cheap shot from Rudy Gobert, without Pascal Siakam, without Tyrese Halliburton, without Aaron Nesmith. And frankly, you kind of wondered where the scoring was going to come from. Jarris Walker was trying to score by driving the basketball and played well. Tony Bradley played really well. A guy that was on a 10-day contract and was active, especially defensively and just in terms of on the glass. And then Obi Toppin with a remarkable 3 that wins the game for Indiana. Toppin was brilliant last night. As always, Toppin is a guy that seemingly delivers. But what I love about this particular team is that Obi Toppin delivers when his number is called in whatever fashion they need him to do so, whether it be defensively, whether it be a rebound, whether it be tapping in a loose ball, whether it be 12 minutes a game or 25 minutes a game. Toppin represents this particular group, and the most overused word in sports is culture. It's the most overused word in sports. It's a buzzword, right? But the Pacers have it, and last night it was on display because what you saw was a group of guys that didn't say, you know what, no one is going to think twice if we drop this one. It's disappointing, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. They literally, that is a group that bench is always standing up on the sidelines. They're supporting each other. You look at the Halliburton 3 against Milwaukee, the way the bench reacted. It is a group that is very – are they the most talented group in the NBA? Maybe not. Are they the most diverse group in the NBA in terms of the way they play? Maybe not. Are they the most defensively tenacious group? Maybe not. But – and I'm sure there are groups that are tight with one another, but this one is much seemingly as any of them. This morning, Rick Carlisle joined – the morning show with Kevin Bowen, of course, and James Boyd and Jeff Rickard joined it this morning and talked about just the overall effort and a shorthanded effort and the pride of the Pacers last night.
The word pride is probably the one that is the most applicable, I guess. We had a really special moment in the locker room. I think our digital people were in there, and
was honestly, I thought that win last night said as much about the Pacers might be defined by Tyrese Halliburton's shot against Milwaukee. because he's their star. He's their max contract guy. He's the guy that delivers when they most need it. The Pacers might most be defined by Pascal Siakam going to the All-Star game because he was their All-Star this year. He's the guy that's been very consistent. He's the guy that has meshed in as a max contract trade deadline guy that then wanted to be here. He was a mainline free agency player that said, Indiana is where I'm willing to stay. The Pacers might be defined by Aaron Nesmith, who was a player who got buried in terms of minutes in Boston, and Brad Stevens was reluctant to give up on, but they did it as part of the Malcolm Brogdon deal because they had a logjam at his position. And then he comes here and, by appearance, completely unselfishly does whatever is needed to be done. Or maybe they're defined by Ben Shepherd, who was the second player selected in his respective draft year. And I think that was difficult for Jarris Walker, truth be told, to see his fellow rookie get a lot of minutes when Walker was still trying to find his way. Individually, you can pick any of those guys and say, or Miles Turner, who's been here longer than anybody on this roster. You can look at any of those guys and say that's who defines the Pacers. But to me, what defines the Pacers in 2025 was that game against Minnesota, where they're down those guys and the rest of the team does not sulk. The rest of the team, every single one of them does what they need to do to win in that game. And Enrique Freeman comes in when his number's called, hits 2 free throws, as being selected as the free throw shooter by Minnesota. He goes in, hits the 2 free throws, goes back out. That's the margin of victory right there. And there's nothing that the starting unit or the core players of the Pacers that were aforementioned need to learn in terms of this roster. But everybody can learn no matter what you're doing. Everybody can learn from what those guys did last night because they did not sulk. They did not give in. They just said, we're going to get this done. And they did. Thought it was great. Loved everything about it.
Shout out to Quentin Jackson. He was really big for them last night. 13 points off the bench and provided energy because oftentimes the Pacers need energy from Tyrese Halliburton. And last night they got it from T.J. McConnell and they got it from Quentin Jackson.
It was fun, man. I love away games like that when you feel like your guys are just going in there and silencing a crowd. It was fun. We've got some numbers yet to give away, right?
That's right.
And callers are lined up. We're going to begin with Martin. Martin, what's up?
Hey, what's going on?
Martin, do you remember the Martin Lawrence show? Are you old enough to remember that?
You say the Martin Lawrence show?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So in that era, I don't know how old you were at that time, but did you tell everybody your name was actually Martin?
Actually, a lot of friends call me that, and that's why I got my nickname Payne.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, Martin, what number would you like?
It's 29 available.
See, I love the way you did that. Is 29 29 is taken. Now, I've got 28, I got 27, I got 26, I got 20, let's see, and then anything from 46 to 64.
Give me 50.
50. Martin, who's your team of choice? Let me ask you that.
I'm a Hurricanes fan.
Really? Well, they're not in the tournament, so who's your team? Who's your favorite team of those that are available?
I would roll with Florida this year.
Well, you didn't get Florida, but you did get a team out of the same conference. What the hell is that, Eddie? What, are you sitting on a whoopee cushion over there? Martin, would you like to guess what that is, what that sound is? Okay.
I have no idea. Wildcat?
Martin,
Yes.
you're correct. Yes. You
Nice.
got the Wildcats of Kentucky, buddy. Kentucky is off the board to Martin. Jimmy is up next. Jimmy, what's going on?
Hey, Jake, what's up, man?
How you looking at it? Have we met before, Jimmy? You sound like a nice fellow.
We have not.
Okay. Have you been listening to the show for a long time, or is your radio broken?
No, man, I love the show.
Okay, well, it's you and my mom. That's 2 people. We're happy with that. What number would you like, Jimmy?
Give me 55.
55. What do you like about the numbers game, Jimmy? Anything you like about the numbers game in particular, or do you find it to be an annoying nuisance in March?
Well, it's hard as hell to get in, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Ooh, Jimmy, how old a fella are you?
I just turned 50.
Oh, well, happy birthday to you. Did you do anything
Thank
fun
you.
for your 50th birthday?
I did not, which made it enjoyable.
Okay, well, that's cool. You actually, Jimmy, get a buy one, get one, because you get one of these weird play-in teams where you have 2 possibilities here. Now, one of them is Xavier. The other comes courtesy of a sound clip that was all the rage from a fabulous movie when you were late in elementary school. Hit it, Eddie. What the hell is that, Eddie?
The stars
Yeah, there we
at
go.
night are big and bright.
You got the Longhorns and Xavier. Jimmy, do you know what movie that's from, by the way?
That's Pee-wee's Big Adventure, brother.
That is the best, man. Look for the bike in the basement. Jimmy, I appreciate it.
That was a musket sword fight.
Oh, nice. So you got a Musketeer and Texas on
I
there.
did,
Okay.
yeah.
You told me originally you didn't have Xavier. That was well played, Eddie. My
Thank you.
apologies for condemning you on that. All right, we have one more that we can sneak in here. I will let you pick who it's going to be.
Let's go with Jim.
Jim. All right, Jim, you are up. What number would you like?
I believe is six still available?
6 is available. Jim, here's a little trivia for you. How long have you been listening to this show?
Since you came over from the morning show.
Okay. And it's very much appreciated. And you can write me off on your taxes as a charitable contribution. Now, Jim, just so you know, there is a state that I have often referenced that if I hit the lottery, I'm going to live in this state on a ranch with 8 rescue dogs. Do you know what state that would be? I'm
going to say Idaho, but I think it's Montana.
Well, here's the thing. It's actually Wyoming, but I was going to tell you it borders the state.
The Cowboys.
But here's the thing. It's not Wyoming that you got. What I was going to say is you got the state that borders Wyoming. You did indeed get Montana. So Montana is off the board. We'll come back. We'll do a little more of that. And then did you say Scott Agnes tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay.
He's got some travel plans.
So we'll come back. We'll do more numbers. And there is potential news regarding Indiana basketball. We'll let you know about that in a couple as well. I've wondered about this. People can. I would like for people to text me. I'll promise not to be thin-skinned about this. Most people have my number by now, but it's 317-523-9288. Correct. Learn it, know it, live it. I would like for people to text me. I love doing the numbers game. I have fun with it because it allows us to interact with listeners, do a quick hello, get them an opportunity to win prizes from Cluster Truck and a hat, gives you a reason to root for somebody in the NCAA tournament. But I do wonder if it's only fun for the people who are on hold waiting and if everybody else listening to it finds it lame. I have tremendous fun with it. I love doing it, and I do it for this and in the Indy 500. But I want to make sure that it is at least enjoyable. So I would like for people to let me know, send me a text whether you enjoy or don't enjoy the segments when we give away numbers.
Well, we've had two people now, one yesterday and one today, I can't remember which one it was, that complained about not being able to get through because there's so many people calling in for it, Jake.
Kids love it. I mean, we know that
It's
much, right?
super popular.
Now, we need at least one female to call in, though. That would help. It looks good for the metrics. And apparently the selection committee's into that. Okay, who do we have here lined up?
Let's go with Nick.
Nick, you are up. What's going on?
Good afternoon, sir.
Nick, I have the following numbers available. I should have read these off. You ready? Please,
Sure.
if you're scoring at home, please write these down and pay attention. These are the numbers that are available. 3, 8, 11, 16, 21, 26, 27, 28, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 46, 47, 48, 49, 51, 52, 53, 54, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, and 64. If the number you're thinking of was not one that I just mentioned, then it's not available, so don't bother. Okay, what number would you like?
I would love 36. That's my favorite number. Thank you.
How is 36 your favorite number, just out of curiosity, Nick?
My best friend from high school unfortunately died the summer after he graduated. It's a combination of his birthday was 4/12, mine's 4/24.
And what is his name?
So 12 and 24. Jeff Pearson.
Jeff Pearson. Well, I'll tell you what.
The pride of Clinton County. Yep.
Okay. Well,
my son is named after him.
Hats off to Jeff, man.
Yep.
I appreciate you calling
I think
in
about him every day,
Nick.
And I'm getting old.
Well, you and me both, brother. All right, here's who we got. Eddie, go ahead. That sounds like Nick and Jeff just wandering the prairie together. A couple of guys ready to go into the saloon and drink down a cold one. McNeese State off the board.
The Cowboys.
McNeese State.
I should have got
Cowboys.
Jerry Jones for that, shouldn't I?
How about them Cowboys?
Or
that would have
yeah.
been Jimmy Johnson, right?
Yeah. But Jerry Jones say, how about them Cowboy? He never says yes.
Well, I listen.
Them Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah, he didn't wash his hands either. Matt, up next. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What number would you like?
I will take 27.
27. Ooh. Matt, just out of curiosity, were you a Bob Knight fan?
Yeah.
So if you were a Bob Knight fan, then you might have had a brief period of time where you were a fan of this particular school.
Red Raiders!
The Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Off the board to Matt. Up next, we will go with Dennis. Dennis the Menace, what's up?
Not much, Jake. How you doing today?
You know, Dennis, here's a better question. You're the listener. You tell me, does it sound like I'm A, just doing okay, B, having a good day, C, a little bit fatigued, or D, totally over it?
E, all the above.
Come on now. I want people to think that, not think. I want you to know that I'm having fun at what I'm doing, right? I got
perks of working with me every day.
We have a fun. This is a fun. We're trying to make this a fun deal, Dennis. What number would you like?
I would like number 11.
Number 11? Any significance to the number 11 in your life?
Wore that when I played baseball in high school.
And that was where?
Northwest High School.
Were you, just out of curiosity, were you a fan of the St. Louis Cardinals, Dennis, when you were a baseball player?
Absolutely, I was. Anything to beat the Cubs.
Well, if you would have gone to St. Louis to a Cardinals game and gotten in the car and gone right across the river, you'd have been at this school. SIU Edwardsville, off the board to Dennis. SIU Edwardsville. I think this might be the first tournament appearance for them. Larry is up next. We got a couple of others here, too, before we round it out. Larry, what's up?
Not a lot. How you doing?
I'm good. Larry, you have a great radio voice. Have you been told that before?
I have.
Mm-hmm. Do you do any sort of voiceover work?
I do not.
Can you do me one favor, and just for the sake of the radio, can you say, it's Larry, and I listen to Query. Can you do that real quick?
It's Larry, and I listen to queries.
Hell yeah, let's go. All right, what number would you like?
I'm going to go with 57.
57. Larry, by my calculations, and I could be wrong in this, but I believe that there are 43 schools that have made an NCAA Final Four appearance since Indiana's last appearance, and one of those is back in the tournament and is one of those schools that you hear about this time of year as a potential dark horse. Virginia Commonwealth, better known as VCU, is gone to Larry. We'll do one more here, and we'll squeeze in Pat. Pat, how are you?
Hey, pretty good. How are you doing?
I can't complain, Pat. As a
That's
matter of
right.
fact, Pat, realistically, if the last guy asked how I was doing and I was okay, I'm probably still okay, unless the last guy was, like, really on my nerves, and nobody has been. Everybody's been cool, right?
I guess they have been.
All right, Pat, what number would you like?
I will take number 8.
Number 8. Pats.
April 8th.
Yes, sir.
We
Pat,
may be hearing from Pat.
Just out of curiosity, Pat, I'm curious about this. Do you play, like, poker by chance?
I do play poker.
Do you get lucky in that also?
Some say so, yeah.
Because I got to tell you just did in this one as well. Hit it, Eddie.
They're great.
That is the Tigers of Auburn, who is off the board, one of the heavy hitters in the NCAA tournament. Pat has put himself in pole position for a week's worth of lunch from Cluster. He's very well played there. He is, in fact, in pole position. Here's the thing. We still got an hour to go, and I feel like now we're completely off the rails, which is what we want, right? This is what we want. Fun is what we want, and I guess we're going to have it on Friday, right, at Prime 47?
That's right. Well,
viewing party.
I will be here.
Viewing party at Prime 47, but I have to get to the airport straight from there. So either I'm going to park right in front.
Going on vacation?
Well, I got a little IndyCar event.
So, yeah, you're going on vacation.
That's right. Thermal Motor Club, or Thermal Auto Club, specifically, just outside of Palm Springs. Now, I will tell you, there is a cemetery.
Shocker.
I know. So, Thermal Club is about 35 miles outside of Palm Springs. And I'm looking at it. I did not go last year to Thermal, so this is the first time I've been in the area. And I'm looking to see what there is to do in the area. The Joshua Tree National Park is right by there, so I look forward to that. But in addition to that, there is a cemetery. And I thought, I wonder if there's anybody famous buried in the area. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Arguably the most famous of people generationally in my lifetime, who my lifetime intersects with, perhaps the most, in my opinion, the most pop culturally famous person whose lifetime intersects mine. Buried in the desert. Buried is the wrong word. Resting place in the desert near Thermal. And I think I'm going to have to pay tribute. And I will give you this hint before we come back and I tell you the answer as to who it is. I guarantee you their voice is the first that you hear every single year. Every year, the first voice that you hear is the person who I'm going to visit and pay tribute to in California. There is news about Indiana basketball potentially. We'll tell you next as well. This about Palm Springs, California, and I don't know really why anybody would know this about Palm Springs, California, and furthermore, why I would be talking about it on a radio show in Indianapolis, Indiana. Other than this, that I found it interesting, I wondered why it would be that Frank Sinatra is in a final resting place just outside of Palm Springs, California. And for that matter, there is another in the same cemetery, another famous person whose resting place is there that is of more recent passing, who was a major star in the 70s and then had a resurgence, although the fame never went away, but introduced to a new generation via pitching a health product later in life. And because Frank Sinatra, I'm going to pay tribute to Frank Sinatra when I go to Palm Springs coming up for IndyCar this weekend, I'll probably swing by and say hello to this celebrity that is entombed in a family plot, which I guess maybe if they could speak, they would say this when I walk up. Suzanne Summers also in Palm Springs. The reason that is, I wondered why Palm Springs became like this destination spot. I did not know this. In the 1930s, there was apparently a provision within the Screen Actors Guild in Hollywood that in order to be a member of it, you had to live within, I believe it was 110 miles of Los Angeles, or more specifically, a 2-hour drive at any point, or a 2-hour commute at any point to Los Angeles. And many entertainers, including Frank Sinatra, chose Palm Springs because it was a place where they could get away from the hustle and the bustle and the lights and glamour and glitz of Los Angeles into a smaller, quieter community, but still be within the required 2-hour commute to Los Angeles, but while being on the outer ring of that. And that is why Palm Springs became a thing, along with, a history elsewhere. But I found that interesting. It is a Tuesday, by the way. Thank you, Eddie. Tuesday here, NCAA tournament gets underway tonight, right, with the play-in games in Dayton?
That is correct. I forget who plays, but I know North Carolina and Xavier play in the night match of the two.
Whenever the NCAA tournament rolls around, that means that the coaching carousel spins freely and creates a breeze. And right now, one of the key cogs in that wheel spinning is, in fact, Indiana University. And I do feel for, as I've mentioned before, I feel for Purdue. Because Purdue has now been a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament for 8 consecutive years. That is a remarkable achievement. And in the NIL era and the transfer portal era, and yes, Purdue has used the transfer portal to accentuate their roster, but they are not using it to be the main line of their roster. They recruit to a system and a program, and you buy into that, and that's what allows you the consistency that Purdue has had. And Matt Painter gets all the credit in the world for that. Truthfully, there is part of me deep down that wonders, and I realize the half-court heave that it would be. But if Indiana is going to talk about, if they're going to offer, as they allegedly did in the last cycle, $10 million a year to Brad Stevens, what's Matt Painter's price tag? That sounds crazy, I realize. To go directly one to the next is almost insane. Bruce Pearl went from Tennessee to Auburn. They're not the rivals. Auburn's rival is Alabama, and Tennessee's is probably Alabama or Florida, if anything. But they're rivals. Rick Pitino was at Kentucky. Rick Pitino was at Louisville. I realize Matt Painter played at Purdue and is Purdue through and through, but it's on record that he grew up a fan of Indiana. And Matt Painter represents everything that you would want in a college basketball program, and it sounds ludicrous to think, should Indiana at least test the waters on a Matt Painter, but why not? Why not? What part of his program is something you would not be willing to, at the very least, what you would do is force Purdue to pay even more to keep him. And if you actually hit the home run and landed him, people would, A, get over the fact he's a Purdue guy real quick, and B, you've now hit your rival in a big, big way. I'm speaking, obviously, in hyperbole and almost lunacy, I realize. But I feel bad for Purdue because Indiana steals the headlines again when Purdue is poised to enter the NCAA tournament starting on Thursday at 12:40 in the afternoon against High Point, a high-flying team that is making their first tournament appearance out of North Carolina. High Point is coached by a guy that was an assistant for Greg McDermott at one time, who's at Creighton. Greg McDermott is a name that is floated around a little bit with the Indiana job. But now this from Jeff Goodman, and I don't know Jeff Goodman. I respect Jeff Goodman. He's certainly been one of the marquee names in covering college basketball for quite some time. But Jeff Goodman reporting today that it appears as though there is, Eddie, a new frontrunner for the Indiana job. Now, the one thing I would say, and I mean this as no disrespect to Jeff Goodman, because these things are indeed always fluid.
Do have two things to follow up with this once you get to what Goodman said.
Okay. Because these things are always, like I said, fluid. And if you are having to report on the day-to-day on a regular basis, then you're going to look inconsistent in your reporting. But it's because the storylines do change a lot. There's a lot of ebb and flows to it. Darian DeVries of West Virginia, according to Jeff Goodman, has emerged as one of, if not the top candidates for the Indiana job. I'm told by sources, he says, there's nothing done yet, but DeVries could wind up being the guy. Drake's Ben McCollum and a third, quote, mystery candidate are still in the mix. There are all kinds of rumors as to who that mystery candidate would be. Brad Stevens, as we've talked about, has an ownership clause with, not an ownership clause, but
stake?
Yes, like if the sale of the Boston Celtics, it is believed that Brad Stevens, as an executive, would get a percentage of that sale, but that is not vested unless he is a member of the Celtics at time of sale. Then you have Jay Wright. People think that Jay Wright could come out of retirement to leave CBS and go to Indiana. That would surprise me because I think Jay Wright is a lot like Tony Bennett in the fact that the new era and winds of change of college basketball just were not something they wanted to be involved in. But I don't know Jay Wright, but I love everything that he stands for. Some people think that TJO from Iowa State is that mystery candidate. Is it possible that it's somebody Billy Donovan or somebody along those lines? I don't think you can rule anybody out. Indiana has been very tight-lipped on this. I still maintain that Brad Brownell of Clemson, the only reason I keep saying his name is because I believe Brad Brownell is their safety school. He is their fallback and that's the wrong word because he's a very good basketball coach, but he played high school basketball with Calbert Chaney. He's from the Evansville area. I don't know how close he is with Indiana Athletic Director Scott Dolson, but they run in similar circles. And I think that there are a lot of people that Brad Brownell is close to who are friends with Scott Dolson. And that would make it for an easy transition. Now, what would be crazy would be if suddenly Brad Brownell is available because Clemson's bounced out of the tournament by Purdue. Will Wade of McNeese is another one that could, if he upsets Clemson. What if Will Wade upsets Clemson and now all of a sudden Brownell's available because their season's come to an end because of another guy that is rumored to be a name Indiana's looked at, but I don't believe that one as much in Will Wade. But what I'm getting at is this. The Indiana job right now, if in fact, Iowa comes into play, because Iowa, you're talking about two guys in DeVries and Ben McCollum, both that have ties to the state of Iowa. McCollum of Drake was born in Iowa City. DeVries was just at Drake, left Drake to go to West Virginia, but he is also entrenched, started at Northern Iowa. Iowa, once both of those names started circling as big job candidate guys, Iowa then did what was expected, but they very quickly got rid of is the wrong word, but they severed ties with Fran McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because one of those two people are considered to be who Iowa is going after immediately? And do either of those two select Iowa over Indiana? Iowa is rumored to be scaling back the amount of money that basketball would receive because of women's basketball and other sports and facilities that their revenue share. They could even out more, spaced out more than some programs would put into men's basketball. But Indiana, to accept the Indiana job, you have to be an alpha. And by that, I don't mean like the kind of guy that comes in and rips sinks out of the wall. But you have to have the kind of personality that when you walk into a room, you got to be E.F. Hutton. When you speak, everybody listens. Bob Knight had it. I always laughed when people would say, I'll tell you what, if I was in the media, I wouldn't let Bob Knight run me around like that. I'd stand up to him, tell him what I thought. And then Bob Knight walks in the room at 6'6", 290 with this presence that you're like, whoa. There was something about him. Say what you want about him as a person, basketball coach, whatever. He had a persona that was in charge of the moment. And some people have that magnetism about them. Rick Pitino has it. Unless it's a restaurant, apparently. John Calipari has it, or had it for a very long time. Bill Self has it. There's a mojo, an energy, just an it factor. I don't know how to describe it. Archie Miller didn't have it. Archie Miller, who had everything that you would want about that Indiana job, but then once he got there and the noise was going around, Archie Miller seemed to kind of be meek. He was like droopy. Mike Woodson, who's a legend in the Indiana lore, but Mike Woodson fell victim to listening to and becoming consumed with what people said about him and wrote about him and thought about him. And you have to be, more than any other job perhaps in America, the Indiana job is one that you have to be absolutely 150% either completely immune to criticism and voices, or so in charge that those don't even get a chance to speak because you control the narrative. And that's the number one thing they need to look for. And Ben McCollum may have it. I don't know. He's a young guy. He's had a lot of success at the D2 level. He could be the next John Beilein. I don't know. He's an impressive-looking guy. DeVries may have it. I don't know. I haven't covered West Virginia, never covered Drake. But you have to have I'm clearly in control. Kurt Signetti has it. But that's football, where in that case it was to sell the program. In this case, whoever Indiana gets, it's got to be one that is pushing it out there, that persona, that aura. You have to have an aura about it that you are absolutely in control, because otherwise that job will bury you, because it will be seen as toxic. And I think there are a lot of coaches that are going to use Indiana right now to have their – and some of this stuff you have to take with a grain of salt, because it could be the agents that are floating this out there, because that gets you a bigger payday if Drake or West Virginia or Iowa State or Auburn or whatever school it may be, if they think that Indiana's coming calling for you, then they come to you, and now all of a sudden, bada boom, bada bing, there goes your bonus. Dusty May just got it, right? Dusty may be the mystery candidate. But anyway, Eddie, you said that there is more to this.
Yeah, so about a half hour ago, it was announced that Gabe Cupps has entered the transfer portal. And then the other part of this is Zach Osterman tweeted about 15, 20 minutes ago that there's a lot of smoke and noise right now. All that he can contribute at the moment is this: Indiana has locked its process up tight, just as it's been virtually this entire time. He's very confident in the belief anything on the win today is coming from somewhere else. Meaning it's not coming from Bloomington.
Yeah, I believe that. That goes with what I said, right?
Yep. And Jeff Rabjohns used the same phrasing of smoke is building around DeVries in Indiana.
That may be the case. You ever watch Naked and Afraid?
Does anyone want to say publicly that they actually watch Naked and Afraid?
Well, if they're admitting they're just doing it for the nudity, that's a little odd. But you've watched it, right? It's a great show.
I mean, channel surfing, you land on it, and you're like, what is this?
Uh-huh. But so you've watched it. Are you admitting you've watched it? It's okay to admit it.
I have in the past. I haven't watched it in probably a couple of years.
Now, there's one fella that went on Naked and Afraid, and he was a complete redneck, and you're allowed to bring one thing from home, and he brought a roll of duct tape. and you thought it was the dumbest thing you've ever heard. And then it's amazing the number of uses they had for the duct tape. But the only problem was when they showed him getting ready, and I believe his direct wording was, I'm getting ready to go inside this forest and make it my beep. But the last thing they showed when he's taking off
What
his
was
clothes,
that? His what? What was he making it?
his witch.
Ah.
So before they showed him going into the forest, he literally, this guy, and it was actually impressive. The last thing that he did before he took his clothes off to go into the forest. For those that are unfamiliar, Naked and Afraid, two people, they're strangers. They have to live for, I think it's 30 days, or is it 30 or 25? Anyway, whatever number of days in a remote area, usually like in a jungle in Panama or of really remote areas, and they've got to live off the land, and they have to do so naked. So they have to come up with, clothing, shelter, all of it. Well, this guy brought duct tape. That was all he brought. But before
21 days.
21 days
in the wilderness.
So before they go into the wilderness, the last thing they show is them getting dropped off and taking their clothes off and going off to meet one another. And this guy, it was really rather impressive, smoked an entire carton of Winston cigarettes in like 15 minutes before he went in and said, and he said, and I quote, I mean, this is my way to quit smoking because it's going to be cold turkey 21 days without a cigarette. And like on day 2, the dude started puking nonstop because of nicotine withdrawal and had to be medically removed after 2 days.
Oh, my goodness.
It was unbelievable. But if you watch that show, whenever they make fire, they got to rub 2 sticks together and whatever else, and they make the fire, and they have the little brush, and they sit there and they're blowing on it, and then all of a sudden, like, you get a little, oh my gosh, we have fire, and then it smolders right back down to
that
just
was a
like
good smoldering sound there.
Thank you. I don't know if you know this, but I have a side job of just doing sound effects.
Well, and state jokes, right?
Oh yes, we haven't done my state jokes in a while.
I know you've been missing the opportunity with some of these in the numbers game.
That is true. By the way, since
like
I've
Montana, for example.
Well, I only have that one's R-rated. I only have a couple of weeks left to do this because it's due by April 15th. But you know what I finished yesterday?
Your taxes?
No, doing my Texas. There we go. I got one for every state. So anyway, when the smoke smolders down like that, that's what the Indiana coaching search feels like. You had Ben McCollum was the one that it was starting to roar and then smoldered back down a little bit. And now it's DeVries, this brush fire, right? Who knows? Does it take off or does it smolder down again? And is it possible that all of a sudden there's going to be a fire that they were totally unaware of? I mean, it is entirely possible that there is going to be somebody who ends up with the Indiana job like Kurt Cignetti. Cignetti came out of kind of, I remember thinking that the Oregon State football coach would have been a good candidate for Indiana and thinking that they completely missed the boat because they let Michigan State get him first. And then Cignetti came kind of the 11th hour, and you're like, okay, I mean, James Madison's had success, and obviously it worked. So does Scott Dolson feel that that's the answer? Now, what are you laughing at over there?
Well, one.
That's the bad analogy sounder, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Well, that's a fabulous analogy I just gave.
Kyle Konezovich just texted me and said, I'd never make it because I'd be too afraid of being bitten in the junk.
Listen.
Like we're the Millers.
Okay. Listen. I've watched a lot of Naked and Afraid. Here, you know how I got introduced to the show Naked and Afraid? I was on a flight once, and they had the in-screen entertainment, and it was DirecTV or whatever, but there was some sort of a glitch on it, and my channel changer wouldn't work, and so the only channel that was locked in on was, is it Nat Geo or Discovery Channel? I think it's Discovery. Maybe. And so I was on like a 4-hour flight, and so I just watched a marathon of 4 episodes or whatever of Naked and Afraid, and it's
all right.
It passed the time. It's fairly entertaining.
You can admit it's your guilty pleasure.
But
it's okay.
No, so now I enjoy it. I've watched a ton of Naked and Afraid, but I'm telling you right now.
So you and Shannon are experts on Naked and Afraid now?
Well, believe me, when I'm the first, she's the second. But here's the thing. Of all things that you can consider, whether it be hypothermia, whether it be sunburn, whether it be fatigue, whether it be malnutrition, starvation, I've watched enough of that show. The number one thing that causes people to tap out and leave is bugs.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen it where people wake up after day one and they are literally absolutely covered in bug bites. The only thing I can think is, would it be to your advantage to actually dig a hole to like sleep in and cover yourself with dirt? Although there's probably bugs under the ground too that can get to you. I guess I don't know.
Worms,
huh?
Worms.
Yeah, I mean it's brutal, man.
Ants.
It's brutal.
Can you imagine ants? Ugh.
I'm telling you, I mean, if you watch that show, it's unreal. It's really unbelievable.
You're laying there sleeping. Next thing you know, you wake up. What is that crawling up my leg? Oh, that's a worm. Nice.
Yeah, no thanks.
Lunch.
But I think here's the thing that I will warn against is the wrong word, but simply tell people to be cautious of. I think that we're going to still hear, and West Virginia, is West Virginia's season over, or are they playing in one of the tournaments?
I believe they are done. I don't think they accepted an invite to the Crown or the NIT.
So if you hear that Indiana has an announcement coming in the next day or two, then that would absolutely lead credence to the fact that that may be who they're getting. But the longer this goes, the longer that tells you or the more likely it is that tells you it's a tournament coach.
Look
obviously.
how long it took Kentucky to get their job filled last year. But then again, Calipari did not leave immediately after the season.
But Eddie, Kentucky experienced what Indiana may. I'm not saying Indiana will. But Kentucky went through.
What number? I don't know if they've announced this or not, but how low on the list do you think Mark Pope was? 4th, 5th, 6th?
I was going to say 4th. I'd have to go back and look, but Danny Hurley was primary target, right?
Yeah.
Scott Drew, wasn't he linked to Kentucky?
Yeah.
There may have been one other, I can't remember who, there might have been one other person that was linked. And then I remember when it was Mark Pope, it did kind of have the feel of like, really? Mark Pope? Mark Pope was their safety school. There's nothing wrong with that. Mark Pope's done a nice job, and Kentucky's having a good year, and he may be, and he seemingly is, he's a former player there, and he looks and feels the part, for sure. But, if Brownell, for example, I just go back to, Mick Cronin probably still is going to be in the mix, maybe. But Brad Brownell, though, is one that, do I think that he's their primary candidate? No. Do I think that he is going to end up with a job? I have no idea. All I'm saying is, throughout the course of this process, he's the one, to me, whose name is most consistently going to be in the mix because he is the safety school. He is the safe fallback where if they hire Brad Brownell, nobody's going to go, what?
Mm-hmm.
They'll go, okay, he's okay. Yeah, I mean, give him, he's won 65% of his games at a football school that doesn't have a big NIL budget and doesn't. I can tell you. I mean, I go to Clemson games. I pass by Little John Stadium. I walk past it every day. It's a fine facility and a fine school and whatever else. But literally, I mean, it was power forward U for a while there. Eldon Campbell came out of there, and one of the Grants came out of there, and Dale Davis came out of there, and no one knew it.
Right.
Greg Buckner as a point guard came out of there, and nobody knew it. We have some more numbers to give away. We might as well do one more round of it. We'll do it on the other side here at 239-1070. Feeling like a little wham mood there, Eddie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to wake me up before you go.
Fair enough. Now, do you think I could get somebody to just give me a ride straight to the airport Friday after we're at Prime 47? Not because I'm going to be drinking, but even though I would love for people to come out and have some drinks and appetizers and watch games. There's nothing better, man. Thursday and Friday opening, I'm thrilled that we're going to be at Prime 47.
You know, because of Jake Query's taxi service, I'm sure there's somebody out there you've given a ride to late at night on New Year's Eve / New Year's morning that could return the favor.
Problem is then when I land on the red eye, I've got to get back in here.
Well, CJ, good news for you. I live very close to the airport.
Do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I can pick you up and we can carpool to work together.
Okay.
I can treat you like Derek Schultz never did.
That's right. Well,
with refreshments and treats in the car when you get in there.
Believe me, that decision goes two ways. Okay, Mark joins us for the numbers game. Mark, how are you?
Hey, how are you, buddy?
I am well, thank you. What number would you like?
Is Larry Legend still around?
Larry Legend. Mark, let me ask you something. Because you went with Larry Legend, I assume that means that you are a man who is native to Indiana. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
As a native of Indiana, do you have a particular school that you root for during basketball season?
Same one you've been talking about all afternoon.
That would be Indiana?
Yes, sir.
I got bad news for you, Mark. Got real bad news for you.
Make it 4 Boilermakers. Whatever you want, sir. I'll have the waitress bring it over immediately.
Mark, we serve you up with Purdue, buddy. Boiler up.
Thank you.
You got
all
Purdue.
Right, boiler up. See it.
I like how Mark was he was down with it. He's like, all right, I'll take Purdue. Kevin is up next. Kevin, that's the kind of camaraderie and that we like on this program. How are you?
Good. How about yourself? How are you guys doing?
Kevin, do you drink a lot of coffee?
Not a lot.
You sound
like
an energetic fella. We're inside and I can't see a window. Is it nice outside? You sound like
beautiful.
spring.
Oh, it feels like summer out here.
Perfect. All right, Kevin, what number would you like?
Would you say gosh dang it. Would you say it feels like San Diego?
That's right. Is it 72 and sunny without a cloud in the sky?
Actually, it is 72 and sunny with a few clouds in the sky.
Okay, well, Kevin, I don't know if you know this or not, but that is what it's like in San Diego, 363 days a year. What number would you like, Kevin?
I will take 3, baby. 3.
Number 3. Kevin, this team actually gave Indiana a heck of a scare in 1987 in the either Indiana Classic or Hoosier Classic down in Bloomington, and then their star center, Brian Rowson, was selected by the Pacers in a later round that year. UNC Wilmington off the board. UNC Wilmington, by the way, upset USC in 2002, which made it probably easier for Indiana's path to the Final Four. Brett Blizzard was their star shooter at that time. Joel is up next. Hi, Joel. What number would you like?
Can I do number 1?
Number 1 is taken, Joel. I should run down the numbers real quick that are available. If I hear one that's of your liking, simply stop me at that time. Sure. 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 35, 38 through 43, 46.
43.
43. All right, number 43. Ooh, Joel, just out of curiosity, are you a cable news viewer?
Rarely.
Let me ask you this. Do you or your significant other, anybody in your family, consider yourself a fashionista of women's leather and or like eyeglass products?
Negative.
Okay, well, what about this? Did you like Lionel Richie? Do you like Lionel Richie?
Oh, love him.
Okay, good. Do you know what band he was a part of when he was in college?
It was man.
You're on the spot, I realize. He was in the Commodores, baby, and so
right.
too are Vanderbilt. The Commodores off the board. Joel, I appreciate it. Todd, you are up. How are you?
What's happening, Jake? I can't believe I got through.
It's what's happening, Todd. What's happening, Todd? How about your Ball State Lady Cardinals, man? 12 seed in the NCAA women's tournament.
You got to it right before I was going to mention it. How about those fighting Cardinals for the ladies? Taking the turn, that's a big move.
And if I'm not mistaken, it also has been a huge year in high school basketball for your alma mater, correct?
Yeah, the Mount Vernon Fighting Marauders, don't be surprised if they take that all the way to the state championship. Incredible run they've had.
Todd, what's your prediction? What do you think of the Colts free agency moves? That will lead them to what record in the upcoming season?
Well, I think they picked up a couple good folks in the secondary. one of them already predicted he wants to be one of the best quarters in the NFL, so we got to believe that, right? Look, I think it's been great, and I got no reason why they don't take this thing all the way to the Super Bowl. It should be a fun year.
Okay, Todd. What number would you like, Todd?
Number 26.
Number 26, Todd, here's the thing. You get a buy one, get one, buddy, because you got one of those where once the tournament begins, it's going to be one of these two that you're carrying the flag for. You either have San Diego State or North Carolina, depending on which one wins and gets in to the tournament. I think North Carolina, actually, just watch. This always happens where somebody's the doubter, and then they get in there and they go to the Sweet 16. They're like, and there was all the talk about how they didn't belong.
Yeah, see, I don't think that's the case with the Tar Heels, unfortunately.
I mean, that may well be the case. Somebody else said, hey, Jake, any chance that Indiana pushed for North Carolina to get in over West Virginia so they could more quickly get West Virginia's coach? No, but I like the theory. It's actually kind of fun. Tony is up next. Hey, Tony.
Yes, sir.
What's up, Tony?
How you doing, Jake?
I'm good. What number would you like, Tony?
I'm going to go 40.
Tony, you sound like a fun guy. You got a big circle of friends?
Not a very big circle. I'm all over the place. I'm in Perry, Iowa right now.
Perry, Iowa. What takes one to Perry, Iowa, other than I-80?
I'm a truck driver. I mean, I'm on I-44 or 144, the little bypass there, and
Are you in a big rig right now?
Yeah.
You know the rules on this program, Tony. Can you give us
here we go. Yeah. I already know.
Okay. Yes! Yes! I love it, Tony.
There you go.
And what number did you say? I'm sorry, Tony.
I said 40, and let's go Clinton Prairie Gophers. How about them?
All right, here we go. Tony, you got a team that I actually always kind of liked when I was a kid growing up. Go ahead.
Finger-licking Kentucky Fried Chicken, a finger-licking good day.
Now, you might think that that's Kentucky, but we know that Kentucky's already been given away. But Kentucky Fried Chicken is owned by Yum Brands, and the Yum Center is the home of the Louisville Cardinals. Tony, drive safely, man. And stop by the world's largest truck stop on I-80, although I believe that's unverified. Michael is next. Michael, what number would you like? Michael. Hang on. Michael, is this on? Michael going once, twice. All right, Thomas is up next. Thomas, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Have you checked on Michael? Is Michael okay? Do you know?
Michael is still on hold.
All right, Thomas, what number?
This is 27?
27 is taken. Now I've got 28.
28.
28.
Yeah,
Okay.
28.
See, I like the way you did that. Thomas, that's the way to do it. Like, boom, you went right to it. No problem. Not a problem at all. Just out of curiosity, Thomas, how old a fella are you?
I am 34.
Well, you're probably too young to remember when the Bradys went on vacation and Bobby and Cindy snuck hot dogs and a flashlight along with baked beans for a young boy that they met living, and where that vacation was, or in vacation with Clark Griswold when they did a quick drive-by view of this. But you probably know that Bryce Drew coaches them. Grand Canyon to Thomas. Thomas gets Grand Canyon. There we go. JMV, by the way, is on location at the Goat in Carmel. We will hand it off to him in about 20 minutes. But before we do that, let's go to Mike. Last number of the day belongs to you, Mike. What number do you want?
How about 6?
Number 6 is gone. Now, I do have the following. I've got 16. I've got 28 was just taken. I've got 32. I've got 34. I've
21.
got 38. I've got 21. You can stop me at any time. I've got 42.
21.
21. All right, there we go. 21. Ooh, you know what? I like this school. Mike. Do you know, let me ask you this, Mike. Do you remember what team it was that Kurt Warner made his splash NFL start with in taking them to the Super Bowl with the greatest show on turf? What franchise was that?
San Diego.
Matthew Stafford is now the quarterback of this team.
No.
What's that?
Rams.
The Rams. That's correct. And that's also Colorado State, who you get. Colorado State off the board. We'll come back. We'll put a tie on all of it. We'll hand it off to John, and we'll do it all next. Us on the program today. Also, Rob Blackman, the voice of the Purdue Boilermakers, and for those of you who have called in for the numbers game, which I do greatly enjoy. I was wearing a sweatshirt for the better part of today, so if you were watching on the YouTube channel, thank you to all of you who watch on the YouTube channel in, as we call it, the break room.
Also, thanks to Evan Sherrill for bringing by some cluster truck earlier.
Fabulous. Those tacos they hit the spot. And Cluster Truck, of course, delivers throughout all of Indianapolis, and their menu is fantastic. You want to talk about fresh food delivered right there to you. Cluster Truck, who sponsors, of course, our numbers game as well. You are correct, Eddie. That was absolutely money, as the kids say. This is, and by the way, the reason I brought up the sweatshirt, I'm wearing a new T-shirt today. Just got it yesterday in the mail. It is incredibly comfortable. I love it. And it simply says, "It takes a village." Brain Injury Association of Indiana. I wanted to mention this. When I was in high school, a million years ago, I realize, but there was a situation that took place in the summer before my senior year that was a major, major news story of the time. I don't want to necessarily go into total detail on it, but it was a horrific event and assault on a girl a year below me. And we were in the same circle of friends. I did not know her well, but our circle of friends certainly crossed over one another. Wendy Waldman, her name. And she was involved in a terrible incident that left her in a coma for the better part of the summer, and I want to say even the majority of the first semester of my senior year, her junior year of high school. And she missed a significant amount of time in what is obviously, from both an adolescent standpoint, a social standpoint, but certainly an academic standpoint, what might be the most important year that one goes through in their junior year of high school, when you're really trying to set yourself in position for college applications and SAT and all of that. And Wendy missed the vast majority of that school year. And then, of course, I went away to college, graduated from high school, and always knew of her journey just through the friends themselves, but not necessarily directly with knowledge of that. A couple of years ago, in a very serendipitous way, I reconnected with Wendy Waldman and reached out to her, and we had a conversation, and I was incredibly impressed by this fact. It was a very, very long journey from a traumatic brain injury back for Wendy after what she went through. And to be able to have the perseverance, the strength, the commitment, and, to overcome what she did simply from a personal level was impressive enough. And I'm talking reconstructive surgeries, a number of different things that she had to battle back from at a young and very impressionable and oftentimes an age of great insecurity for people in general. But she went on to college to the University of Georgia, which is one of the great public institutions in this country, and graduated from college and is now the president of the Brain Injury Association of Indiana, which facilitates for support groups, not only for people who have had a traumatic brain injury, but also for those family members, friends of people who have gone through that journey themselves, and provides for the resources, research opportunities, education, training, all of that for people who have gone through. And that's the thing about traumatic brain injury. It could be a car accident. It could be you fall off a scooter. It could be any number of things where life turns in the blink of an eye for people. And in a school that had 4,000 kids, I don't know that any that I went to school with has had a more remarkable career and journey that any institution should appreciate, respect, and promote more than that of what Wendy Waldman has done. And to now be the president for the Brain Injury Association of Indiana, I would like to think that I speak for everybody in the community in which we grew up in speaking my pride for her. But they recently put these T-shirts up for sale. I bought one because I believe in the work that they do, and found out recently that this is Brain Injury Awareness Month in the United States. And what better way, and I think it is so important because it is one of those ailments that someone can go through, one of those journeys that somebody can enter into in the blink of an eye when you least expect it. And you never know which one of us could be affected and impacted by that personally or indirectly from someone close to us. So the work that they do, the Brain Injury Association of Indiana, I think is very important. Their website is biaindiana.org. I guess the easiest way to say it is like in Wendy's case, if you say, like, you know what, you got a choice in that situation and you can be a hero. And that's what she has been. But instead of BEA, in this case, BIA, because it's brain injury. BIAindiana.org is the website. And the T-shirt, I love it. And I'm happy and proud to wear it to say that I believe in the organization and simply the awareness for that in the month of March, which is Brain Injury Awareness Month in the United States. So I wanted to pass that along. John is going to be at the Goat in Carmel up next. I'm sure there will be plenty that he will be talking about, including the news with Indiana. I mean, that obviously that coaching search is going to continue to be a storyline, and it may be that who knows, that may break on Friday when we're at Prime 47, when we're sitting there watching games and talking sports. Or I'm sure that he will be talking plenty about last night's Pacers game, which was one of, if not the most impressive win of the season. They've had great wins this year. The Tyrese Halliburton shot against Milwaukee was remarkable. It was electric. It was the reason, as I say, that you go to games and that you want to be a part of that. But the last night, I thought, typified this roster and this team. And maybe it doesn't always stay this way, but to have 1 through 15, 1 through 20, if you consider the sports staff, everybody else, to have a group of players that all are willing to wait their turn and do what they need to when their number is called and whatever means they need to contribute to win a game. If you watch Enrique Freeman, last night there's a situation where Andrew Nembhard gets ejected because of the skirmish where he throws the ball at Rudy Gobert. The Pacers had got out to a big lead, but you knew no Siakam, no Turner, no Nesmith, no Halliburton. They were already shorthanded. And then in that situation, because Nembhard's ejected, the Timberwolves get to select the player of their choice off the bench to shoot the free throws. And they think, well, let's pick on Enrique Freeman. He's not going to be able to come in here and hit a free throw. And not only does he hit both free throws, not only do those 2 points that he comes in cold, mind you, off the bench and hits those free throws and then goes back. A 0-minute stat line on the score sheet, but for 2 points. Not only does Enrique Freeman hit those shots, but in doing so, he comes back to the bench, and you can see the jubilation, the pride of the rest of the team in him of, yeah, man, you got this done for us. And it turned out to be, yes, Obi Toppin's 3-point shot out of the corner, which was an incredibly difficult shot and one that capped off a fine performance from Toppin once Benedict Mathurin in particular had fouled out where they needed scoring. That Toppin shot is what goes down as technically the game winner. But it doesn't matter if Freeman doesn't hit those 2 free throws.
Or if Thomas Bryant hits that 3 right before the Toppin 3.
Yeah. I mean, the level of contribution across the board, but in addition to that, the willingness for the entire team to constantly support whichever player it is. I thought last night it was the best win of the year for the Pacers, and the reason I say that is because I think it symbolized and typified exactly what any organization likes to tell you they are, one of character and culture, and I thought we saw it last night. Thanks to everybody that listened. We will give away more numbers tomorrow. We'll be back at noon here.